There's something nobody tells you when you're growing up. Being too nice can ruin your life. You grow up learning to be kind, agreeable, and accommodating. But what they don't teach you is this. When you become a chronic people pleaser, you lose sight of who you are. In 2025, we live in a world where authenticity is craved, not politeness. We're not short on smiles, we're short on truth. Let's talk about that. There's a moment in all of our lives when we realize that being liked isn't the same as being respected. That moment often comes after we've said yes too many times, swallowed our opinions to keep the peace, or agreed with something we fundamentally disagreed with, just to avoid tension. We're told from an early age to be nice. We're rewarded for being agreeable. Teachers praise it, parents admire it, K-workers expect it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Being nice can be a mask. A mask we wear to gain approval, avoid confrontation, and preserve a fragile sense of harmony. And while it might win you temporary affection, it doesn't build long-term trust. That's where the distinction lies. Because kindness, unlike niceness, is not about smoothing edges. It's about standing firm with compassion. Nice is about being liked in the moment. Kind is about doing what's right for the long term. Nice says, sure, I'll do that, while your gut screams no. Nice avoids the tough conversation because it might make someone uncomfortable. Nice sacrifices self-respect on the altar of being accepted. But kindness is rooted in respect for others and for yourself. Kindness says, I care about you enough to be honest. Kindness says, I value our relationship too much to lie to you with a smile. Kindness might hurt in the moment, but it heals over time. Emma was one of the most well-liked managers in her company. Her team appreciated how available she was, how agreeable she seemed. No matter what they asked for, an extra project, time off, more help, she always said yes. She thought she was being kind. She thought that by never pushing back, she was supporting her people. But over time, something started to shift. Emma grew tired, withdrawn. She was stretched too thin. She lost sight of her own priorities. She was doing everything for everyone else and nothing for herself. One day, she broke down in a meeting, not because of a single request, but because of hundreds she'd agreed to over the years without ever setting a boundary. She burned out. She left. Her niceness cost her everything. Now think about Luis, a different kind of manager. Luis was respectful, warm, but clear. When his team came to him with too many tasks, he didn't just nod and pile them on his shoulders. He said, let's look at what's most urgent. I can't do all of this right now, but we can prioritize. He didn't avoid hard conversations. He led with them. And because of that, his team trusted him. They knew where they stood. They weren't coddled. They were respected. The difference between Emma and Luis wasn't how much they cared. They both cared deeply. The difference was courage. Luis had the courage to set boundaries, to be honest, to risk short-term discomfort for long-term strength. That's what real kindness looks like. We don't talk enough about the courage it takes to be kind. We think kindness is soft, gentle, passive. But the truth is, kindness is fierce. It means telling a friend they're making a mistake. It means being direct with someone who's falling short because you believe they can rise. It means standing your ground with grace even when your voice shakes. In 2025, we need less niceness and more kindness. We need people who are willing to trade comfort for connection. People who are willing to be real. Because when you're truly kind, when you speak the truth with empathy, when you lead with honesty instead of avoidance, you don't just make people feel good, you make them better. And in a world that's drowning in superficial smiles and empty agreements, that kind of courage is the rarest and most valuable thing of all. There's this idea that in order to be a good person, you have to keep things to yourself, that holding back your real thoughts, biting your tongue, or avoiding confrontation somehow makes you more considerate. We've been taught that it's more important to be liked than to be real. But what if I told you that by hiding your true feelings, you're not being considerate, you're being dishonest? Not maliciously, but silently. And silence has consequences not just for you, but for the people around you who are missing the opportunity to grow, to change, to be better, because you were too afraid to speak. We think we're protecting people by not saying the hard things. We think avoiding discomfort is compassion. But in reality, when you don't say what needs to be said, you are not sparing them, you're stalling them. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens when someone dares to tell you the truth, and you're brave enough to hear it. When you suppress your truth to keep the peace, what you're actually doing is choosing short-term harmony over long-term progress. Imagine this. You have a coworker who consistently misses deadlines. Every time it throws off your workflow, it creates extra stress. But instead of saying something, you keep quiet. You tell yourself you're being nice, or that it's not your place. You don't want to hurt their feelings, but the problem doesn't go away. It gets worse, and so does your resentment. Meanwhile, that coworker continues down the same path, unaware that they're falling short. And why shouldn't they? No one is telling them otherwise. That's not kindness, that's avoidance. Feedback is not cruelty. Accountability is not aggression. When delivered with empathy, with the intent to support, not shame, it becomes one of the most generous things you can offer another person, because it says, I see you, I believe in you, and I know you're capable of better. It's human nature to want to be liked. We all crave acceptance, but when we place being liked above being honest, we lose something vital, integrity. And integrity is what builds trust. It's what turns good teams into great ones, and surface-level friendships into meaningful relationships. There's data to back this up. In a recent Deloitte study, 72% of employees said they actually want more feedback. Not less. People are not as fragile as we think. In fact, they're often stronger than we give them credit for. What people are really looking for is someone who cares enough to tell them the truth, and who does it with respect. And yes, it takes courage. It's much easier to stay silent, to go along, to keep things smooth. But easy doesn't make an impact. Easy doesn't create change. The people who shape others' lives, who help teams grow, who lift others up, they're the ones who speak up. Not to criticize, but to coach. Not to blame, but to build. You can be honest and kind at the same time. These things are not opposites. They are part. Honesty without empathy is cruelty. But empathy without honesty, that's neglect. We need to stop pretending that truth and kindness are mutually exclusive. They are. The most powerful leaders, friends, partners, and colleagues are those who tell the truth, not because it's easy, but because they care enough to do the hard thing. So the next time you find yourself holding back, ask yourself, am I being kind or just comfortable? Because comfort won't push anyone forward. But truth, spoken with heart, absolutely will. Leadership isn't about being liked. It's about being trusted. And somewhere along the way, too many people in leadership positions confused the two. They started chasing approval instead of alignment, popularity instead of purpose. They traded honest conversations for comfort and clarity for consensus. But here's the thing, being too nice will kill your leadership. Slowly and quietly, like rust on metal. It won't make a loud crash. It will simply erode your ability to lead with integrity, until one day you look around and realize no one's really following you. They're just avoiding upsetting you. When a leader is overly concerned with keeping the peace, they end up creating the exact opposite: confusion, inconsistency, and distrust. Because when you can't count on your leader to tell you the truth, you start second-guessing everything. What are they really thinking? Are they being honest? Are we doing well? Or are they just too afraid to say we're not? Teams don't thrive in that kind of environment. They survive in it. And survival is not leadership. It's damage control. The best leaders, the ones who make people better, the ones who drive change, the ones who leave legacies. They don't aim to keep everyone happy. They aim to keep everyone growing. And growth is often uncomfortable. Sometimes it looks like a direct conversation. Sometimes it sounds like I'm not okay with this. Sometimes it means delivering tough feedback, holding people accountable, or making decisions that are unpopular in the moment, but necessary for the future. There's a reason why we remember certain leaders for the rest of our lives. It's not because they told us what we wanted to hear. It's because they told us what we needed to hear. They didn't sugarcoat. They didn't dance around the truth. They didn't try to make everything feel good all the time. They respected us enough to be real with us. And that respect created trust. And trust is the foundation of every strong team, every successful company, every meaningful relationship. Think about the best boss you've ever had. Chances are, they weren't always agreeable. They didn't smile their way through every mistake. They didn't nod politely when things went sideways. No, they stepped in. They spoke up. They set the tone. And even when it was hard to hear, even when it made your stomach drop, deep down, you were grateful because you knew they cared enough to guide you. And now think about the worst boss you've ever had. Not the cruel ones, the nice ones, the ones who never gave clear direction, who avoided confrontation, who said one thing in a meeting and something completely different behind closed doors. The ones who tried so hard to be liked that they ended up being completely ineffective. That kind of leadership doesn't inspire anyone. It confuses, it frustrates, it leaves people feeling directionless. Leaders are not there to keep everyone comfortable. They're there to keep everyone aligned. And alignment requires truth. It requires consistency. It requires having a spine, not to dominate, but to stand for something. Because when a leader stands for something, people will rise to meet them there. Being kind as a leader matters. Being empathetic matters. But kindness without courage isn't kindness, it's cowardice dressed in politeness. Real leadership begins the moment you're willing to disappoint someone in the short term, so they can become better in the long term. It begins the moment you stop managing people's emotions and start guiding them toward growth. So no, the world doesn't need more agreeable leaders, it needs more honest ones. The kind who speak with clarity, act with integrity, and earn trust by being consistently real, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. There's a quiet power in the word no, a strength that doesn't shout, doesn't fight, it simply stands its ground. In a world that rewards busyness and glorifies self-sacrifice, it takes real courage to draw a line and say, this is where I end, and you begin. We've been conditioned to believe that being available all the time means we're valuable, that if we're not saying yes, we're letting someone down, that if we don't show up for everyone else, somehow we're failing. But the truth is, you can't give your best to others when you've given away everything you have. Boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are self-respect in action. We don't set boundaries because we don't care. We set them because we care enough to protect what's important. Our health, our time, our peace of mind. In 2025, more people are burned out than ever before. Not because they don't care, but because they care too much, too often, without limits. We're afraid to pause. We're afraid to disappoint. But in that fear we say yes, when we should say no. We agree when we want to decline. We make ourselves smaller so that others don't feel uncomfortable. And each time we do, we chip away at our energy, our dignity, and our sense of self. Marcus was a brilliant software engineer, the kind of teammate everyone counted on. He had a reputation for being the fixer, the helper, the one who could solve any problem, and he liked being that person until it started to cost him. He'd log in early, stay late, say yes to every request. He was always there for everyone else. But no one noticed that Marcus hadn't been there for himself in months. Eventually, the resentment built. He wasn't angry at others. He was disappointed in himself for never drawing the line. One day, he made a simple change. He told his team, "These are my core hours for deep work. Outside of that, I'm happy to support. But within limits." Something unexpected happened. His productivity shot up. He wasn't distracted. He wasn't overwhelmed. And people began to respect his time more, not less. That's the truth about boundaries. When we set them, we teach people how to treat us. We communicate that our time has value. Our energy is not unlimited. Our well-being matters too. Saying no isn't a rejection of others. It's an affirmation of yourself. And that's not arrogance. That's responsibility. We have to stop apologizing for needing space. We have to stop feeling guilty for not being everything to everyone. You don't have to go to every gathering. You don't have to return every text immediately. You don't have to take on every extra task.
every favor, every emotional burden that comes your way. You are not a machine. You are not here to serve others at the cost of your own well-being. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are frameworks that make relationships sustainable. They create clarity. They eliminate confusion. They allow us to show up with energy instead of exhaustion, with intention instead of obligation. And the people who truly care about you will honor your boundaries, not challenge them. This isn't about becoming less generous. It's about being generous from a place of wholeness. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. No is a full sentence. I don't have capacity is valid. I need time for myself is not selfish. It's necessary. If we want to thrive in 2025, not just survive, we have to understand that burnout is not a badge of honor. Exhaustion is not a status symbol. And constantly sacrificing your own needs for the comfort of others isn't noble. It's a slow form of self-abandonment. So draw the line. Protect your space. Choose yourself. Not just once, but every day. Because the people who matter will meet you at your boundary, not push past it. We spend so much of our lives trying to be like. We carefully choose our words, monitor our tone, smile when we don't feel like smiling, and tiptoe around the truth, just to avoid making waves. But something strange happens when we do all that. We don't get closer to people, we drift further away. Because deep down, we all know when someone is being genuine, and when someone is performing. Real connection doesn't come from perfect behavior. It comes from being real, messy, honest, imperfect, and human. There's this fear that if we show who we really are, if we stop being overly nice, if we stop agreeing with everything, if we let go of trying to be pleasing all the time, we'll lose people. But the truth is, when we finally drop the act and let ourselves be seen, that's when people start to lean in. That's when trust is built. Because trust isn't built on comfort, it's built on truth. And truth only shows up when we do. We're not inspired by people who always say the right thing. We're inspired by people who have the courage to say the real thing. Think about it. The people you admire most in your life, they're not the ones who always told you what you wanted to hear. They're the ones who told you what you needed to hear. The friend who gently called you out when you were drifting. The mentor who saw your potential and refused to let you play small. The partner who saw past your mask and held space for the person underneath. These people didn't love you because you were easy. They loved you because you were worth showing up for. And they proved it by being honest. We crave that kind of connection, especially in a world that's more connected than ever, but lonelier than it's ever been. People are desperate for authenticity, not polish, not performance, just realness. And yet so many of us are stuck playing the part of the nice one, the agreeable one, the one who smiles through the discomfort and hides how they really feel. But niceness, without honesty, isn't connection. It's a transaction. It's what we do to keep things polite on the surface, while we silently pull away underneath. Real connection doesn't come from always getting along. It comes from being willing to disagree with respect. It comes from vulnerability, the kind that says, I'm not okay right now, or I need help, or I don't see it the way you do, but I still care about you. That kind of communication is raw. It's not always tidy, but it's real, and people can feel the difference. Authenticity doesn't mean saying whatever you want without thought. It means choosing honesty over approval, even when it's uncomfortable. It means having the self-respect to speak your truth, and the empathy to let others speak theirs. When both of those are present, truth and care, that's when connection goes from shallow to soul deep. We don't connect through perfection. We connect through the courage to be ourselves, and to allow others to do the same. When we show up without the mask, when we stop editing ourselves to fit someone else's expectations, something powerful happens. We give other people permission to do the same. That's how change spreads, not through performance, but through presence. In a time where so many relationships feel hollow, where so many conversations feel scripted, what we need most are people who are willing to be real, to say what they mean, to feel what they feel, to live in alignment with who they are, rather than who they think they should. Because when you're real, you're trustworthy. And when you're trustworthy, people follow, they open up, they engage, they stay, not because you were perfect, but because you were honest. And in a world full of noise, honesty is still the clearest sound people will ever hear. Every day we're faced with a choice: blend in or stand up, fit in or speak out, play it safe or lead with truth. And for too long, too many of us have been choosing comfort over courage, niceness over honesty. We try so hard to be liked, to avoid upsetting anyone, to be the person everyone finds easy to be around. But here's what we rarely say out loud: being easy isn't the same as being impactful. You can spend your whole life trying to avoid tension, smoothing over every rough edge, nodding along to keep the peace, and still feel invisible, still feel disconnected, still feel like you're not being seen for who you really are. Because the world doesn't remember you for how agreeable you were. It remembers you for the times you chose to be real, for the moments you spoke the truth when it mattered most, for the times you showed up with clarity when it would have been easier to fade into the background. That's what leaves a mark, not politeness, but purpose. When we think about the people who've changed our lives, they all have one thing in common: they didn't always tell us what we wanted to hear. They told us what we needed to hear. They didn't sugarcoat the truth to protect our feelings. They delivered it with care because they respected us. And we remember them not because they made us feel comfortable, but because they made us feel seen. They had the courage to challenge us and the integrity to be honest. That's leadership. That's impact. That's what real connection looks like. So why are we still pretending that being nice is the highest virtue? Why do we hold back what we truly think and feel just to keep others happy? Why do we fear being misunderstood more than we value being authentic? The world doesn't need more people nodding in silence. It needs people brave enough to say, "This is what I believe," even when their voice trembles. People willing to say, "This isn't working," when everything around them says, "Just keep." People who choose honesty over harmony, truth over approval. And let's be clear, this isn't about being harsh. It's not about being loud or combative. It's about being grounded, consistent. It's about choosing to lead with integrity, knowing not everyone will agree, and being okay with that. Because when you're real, you don't need to chase validation. You stand on values, and people may not always like that, but they will respect it. And in time, they will trust. And trust, real trust, is what creates change. So stop being nice, start being real, start being brave enough to disappoint the expectations that were never yours to carry in the first place. Start being clear, even when your voice shakes. Because when you choose clarity, when you choose truth, when you choose to show up without the mask, that's when things begin to shift. That's when your relationships deepen. That's when your leadership grows. That's when you stop living for approval and start living with purpose. Don't aim to be liked, aim to be respected. Don't settle for being agreeable, choose to be authentic. Don't be nice, be real. The world doesn't need another agreeable voice in the room. It needs someone with the courage to say the thing no one else will say, to lead from the front, to speak with heart, and to stand for something that matters. Because when you do that, when you stop hiding behind niceness and start leading with truth, you become exactly what this world needs now more than ever.